Welcome to the 2021 Milton Speaks Candidate Forum Series. My name is Michael Lynch, Executive Director for Milton Access Television, and I will act as tonight's moderator. This year, we are hosting the annual Candidates Forum over a series of nights in March and April leading up to the election, taking place on Tuesday, April 27th. Tonight, we will hear from the Planning Board candidates. The candidates were contacted through the town clerk's office as well as MATV for the participation in these forums. Candidates were not provided the questions or subject matter before tonight's debate. Tonight's questions will be asked by Ms. Elaine Carroll of the Milton Times, Mr. Ralph Destin, and Mr. Jonathan Wallman, both captains of the Milton High School debate team. We also solicited questions from the public. If you don't hear your question being asked, it may be part of another question or a repeat question from another panel member. The format for tonight's forum: each candidate will be allowed a 90-second opening statement. Question of the candidates will then be asked by members of the panel. Each candidate will be allowed a 90 seconds response to each question. The order of the first question will be alphabetical by last name, and the order will change for each subsequent question. There will be a 1-minute closing statement offered to each candidate, and the order will be chosen randomly. There will be no rebuttals. I will signal you when you have 15 seconds remaining to wrap up your answer. I ask that you finish your time and finish your thoughts and bring your response to a close at that time. Tonight's forum will feature the Planning Board candidates. They are Meredith Hall and Rob Levash. Each candidate was asked to submit a brief bio to be read this evening, which I will do now, starting with Ms. Meredith Hall. Meredith Hall is excited to be running as a candidate for the Town of Milton Planning Board. Meredith is a town meeting member, Precinct 3, and currently serves on the Milton Historic Commission, Cunningham Park Foundation Board, Historic New England Outreach Committee, and Milton Public Schools MPACE Committee. She previously was on the initial study committee for the Community Preservation Act, member of the Junior Women's Club, Glover PTO, and Cultural Arts Committee. She has lived in Milton for 27 years along with her husband, David, and has raised their 3 children, Kendall, Parker, and Lizzie. She has a BS in business from Miami University of Ohio and has worked in the real estate field for over 30 years. Meredith believes she would bring a unique perspective and understanding to planning for Milton and is committed to maintaining the character of Milton while improving the quality of life for everyone. And now, Mr. Levash. Rob Levash is a licensed architect and partner at Wilson Butler Architects with over 18 years of experience in design and planning. He has designed many of his firm's cutting-edge and award-winning projects and was integral to planning for how each project impacts its community. He is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion within his practice and community. His leadership and active role as a founding member of the Bowes Hill Neighborhood Association have provided him insight into the importance of hands-on approach to development and planning and sparked his drive to run for the planning board. Rob has been a Milton resident for over 13 years, having lived in East Milton and recently settled with his family on the west side of town. Rob and his wife, Jamie, have 2 daughters, Gabby, 9, and Reese, 4, who attend Milton Public Schools at Collycott and Cunningham. He also loves sports and helps coach his daughter's softball team. And now, let's begin the forum. We will start with opening statements. And Ms. Hall, we will begin with you. You have 90 seconds.
Great. Good evening, and thank you for those who are watching this evening, and for Milton Access TV to be hosting the debate, along with the Milton High debate team and the Milton Times. With thoughtful yet welcoming concepts, Milton can continue to be an exemplar of town planning. Milton needs to address total needs as it increases its population and opportunities. Infrastructure, fire, police, and schools are just a few of the areas that need to be considered with a growing population. Having extensive experience working in and volunteering for organizations on behalf of Milton, I believe I would bring a unique perspective and understanding to planning for Milton. As a real estate professional, I have skills to identify the housing supply and demand and trends, as well as land opportunities that would enable us to thoughtfully and proactively plan for affordable housing and reach our 10% goals. In adhering to Milton's master plan, I would seek opportunities for historic preservation of open space, and high quality affordable housing. It would be my goal and it would be my goal to maintain the character of Milton while improving the quality of life for all of our residents. I see the passing of the Community Preservation Act as a great opportunity to help fund our most essential projects. I believe most importantly in listening to our residents, that we are transparent and provide the opportunity for all voices to be heard. I look forward to discussing these issues with you this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. And now, Mr. Liebash, your opening statement, please.
Yeah, good evening. I want to thank Milton Access TV, the Milton Times, and the Milton Debate team for their time and for creating this forum. The Planning Board plays a vital role in the quality of life that we share as residents of Milton and is responsible for oversight of development in town. Currently, in terms of development, our town is at a crossroads. The recent uptick of 840B proposals highlights the importance of this board and the expertise of its members. There has been some progress around our overall planning in recent years, but we need to ride that momentum and get our town unstuck from a reactionary planning approach. The fact is that Milton zoning has changed very little in the last 80 years and continues to lag behind state legislation, especially around our obligations for affordable housing. This is why we're facing such aggressive development proposals. We need a new approach, and I believe that my professional experience and skill set make me uniquely qualified to bring that approach and help the town move towards responsible, proactive planning to discourage 40B development, add needed amenities, and increase our tax levy to keep our town the wonderful place that it is. We also must demand and allow for enhancement with a proactive approach that utilizes responsible growth and development to sustain the wonderful historic character we all love in Milton. Without planning, the historic sites and buildings that are the fabric of our community are in jeopardy. With planning that allows for adaptive reuse and appropriate development, our town can be enhanced and preserved. My experience as an architect and my background in urban planning has given me the skills to not only analyze and create alternatives to proposed development, but participate in the creation of planning for the next 80 years in Milton's. That's an essential difference and an expertise that I'll be able to apply immediately to the planning board. I'm extremely passionate and committed to my work and responsibilities, and with your vote for Rob on April 27th, I pledge to work tirelessly for the future of Milton.
Great. Thank you to Ms. Hall and Mr. Liebash for your opening statements. Let's now get to the questions. Our first question will come from Ms. Carroll, and we'll first go to Ms. Hall. Ms. Carroll, your question?
Should the town increase the amount of multifamily housing it provides, given that the town is now more than 70% single-family homes?
That's a very good question. And I think what we should first begin with is looking at what our current multifamily housing projects that currently exist, but really most importantly, what's in the pipeline. We currently have a proposal before us for a condominium conversion article and an accessory unit article. But I think what we really need to address is what type of multifamily housing that we need. We've just recently had the Woodmere, and now currently under construction, we have the Walcott Estate project. We also have 31 Canton Avenue. We have some pending 40Bs that are looking more likely to go through, such as the Ice House and the project possibly on Randolph Avenue. And then following that, we will also certainly have a project of some type coming from the Falcones. There's a new proposal for condominiums on Granite Avenue. There is our Canton Avenue, our Blue Hill Avenue, and Amore Road 40B projects as well. So I think what we need to do is to address the potential of where we are going with all of those multifamily housing and have an understanding of what we have and what type of housing. Milton currently has quite a few condominiums that are being developed. What I would like to see is to actually work with a friendly 40B developers in doing some rental housing, which actually would encompass affordable housing. So every single unit that would be counted in that building would count towards our affordable count. If we go with condos, only 25% of those buildings. So I do believe in working with a 40B developer in looking for sites that we could do appropriate sized multifamily housing that would address our affordable housing needs.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Liebash?
Yeah, so I absolutely think that we need to be looking at multifamily. You know, within the last 18 years, the facts are that, you know, how much affordable housing that we've increased has only been 0.74%. So we absolutely do need to move the needle on creating some affordable housing in Milton. The nature is that we only really have single family housing, and the market is only continually increasing. And so creating a diverse housing stock is absolutely important. I do agree with Meredith that, you know, we should be looking at 40B that's friendly, 40R type of affordable housing is very important to us. But it's a challenge to create affordable housing in Milton. You know, we don't have a lot of large land tracts in Milton that we can just put up 200 units. So there should be an equitable approach. You know, all of our neighborhood voices really need to be taken into account. And, you know, I plan on working with all neighborhoods, working with town meeting members, as well as our government and committees, you know, especially the Affordable Housing Trust Committee, that we can look towards, you know, creating more affordable housing. And we can do that through multifamily units.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Levash. Our next question comes from Mr. Dustin, and we'll first go to Mr. Levash. Mr. Dustin, your question?
Thank you. As students of the Milton Public Schools, it has been clear since we were young that there is a demographic and socioeconomic divide in Milton in terms of the location of housing and school districting. How do you plan to close this gap and better promote diversity and inclusivity in housing and districting?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and even gets back to my other point. You know, we need to take a multi-pronged approach to our planning. One that really spreads planning throughout all of our neighborhoods, and one that, you know, we can't throw density all in one neighborhood. It really matters to me that we create a diverse housing stock, you know, in all of our neighborhoods, and that will really fit within our neighborhoods. You know, I think it's too easy to say, hey, we're going to put up 200 units or 100 units, because that's really what we're getting with the 40Bs right now. That's on our doorstep. And so there's a better way. You know, we can work with our neighborhoods, work with our town meetings to a proactive planning approach through a multi-pronged approach. You know, there's ways that we can do it through smart zoning, through starter house zoning, creating overlay districts. You know, the planning board has already created overlay district for the Milton Village. I'd love to see it for East Milton and really look at smart zoning districts as well. You know, we should create incentives for our business and landowners, which offer a return on investment, as well as leveraging our existing town-owned land, as Meredith has said in the past, is look at state-owned land as well and look where we can put some growth and some different affordable housing options.
Thank you, Mr. Levash. Ms. Hall, you have 90 seconds.
Yes, I would say probably the same. The challenge for Milton is that we were built up prior to any zoning. So we are only 10% commercially zoned, 90% really single family homes. So the best approach is looking at doing some things with some overlay zoning. The issue also that we work with is trying not to overly impact already dense areas. So for example, areas in East Milton and west sides of town already have incredible density. And so how do we go about doing that we can work in our, through our business districts, but while maintaining and preserving our open space, because open space is probably one of the most equitable ways of being inclusive and offering just a real, in a way, a diversity of housing, to have properties on open space and preserving our open space. So overlay zoning, yes, but you have to be careful about how you go about doing that. And because actually we do have quite a bit of interestingly diverse housing with apartments and condos. Unfortunately, a lot of those are not counting towards our affordable housing units, which is something that I would like to work to do as well.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Next question comes from Mr. Wallman. from the Milton High School debate team, and we'll first go to Mr. Oh, I'm sorry, to Ms. Hall. So Mr. Wellman, your question?
Yeah, thank you. So many students often feel that the lack of dedicated recreational centers and teen centers makes them more vulnerable to sedentary lifestyles, and to some even drives the high drinking rate. How can Milton combat this in the long term?
Very good question. And actually, unfortunately, right before COVID hit, I was part of a group that had just actually built the teen center. It was the First Congregational Church. Most of you probably know about it. It has an after-school program for middle school students to be able to walk over and give an option where they can either go to the library or go to the teen center, where they could actually get academic support after school, access to technology, which sometimes students would not have maybe in their own households. So I was very involved with the development, and actually my husband oversaw the construction of that project, co-chaired that project. But there's also the need for outdoor recreational space that I think we could certainly improve on, especially in areas of Milton, the west side of Milton, which does not have necessarily the basketball courts, the tennis courts, and could it be some outdoor athletic programs, which I think are wonderful ways for mentors to provide leadership, to give outside activities, especially for young people. Being physical and being outside is really critical. So that is something that I would be incredibly focused on, is through preservation of the open space and now the Community Preservation Act, that we can offer some additional parks and rec programs, in addition to looking at teen centers or other facilities in a variety of locations of Milton.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Liebash?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that I will absolutely agree with Meredith, and congratulations for creating that teen center. Having lived in East Milton for 12 years, the one thing that I missed moving over to the west side is all the amenities that we were so welcome to have in East Milton. One of them being our park. We would walk to Andrews Park all the time, where there was recreation, there was basketballs, there was playground. Where I live currently, we have to get in our car and drive to a park. And so I do think there's an opportunity on the west side of town to, as Meredith said, create some recreation or create some town centers that we could really, for some amenities for teens over on this side of town. So I think that's really important.
Thank you, Mr. Liebash. The next question will come from Ms. Carroll at the Milton Times, and we'll first go to Mr. Liebash. So Ms. Carroll, your question?
So the planning board involves long hours of site plan and technical reviews. What experience and abilities do you have that will help you power through all that?
Yeah, I mean, so this is directly, I'm an architect. This is exactly what I do for a living. I've had many projects where I've collaborated with many neighborhoods and planning boards and design boards, and had successful projects, go through for their communities. So this is exactly the skill set that I have and been, studied for in college. It's really important. It's a really important tool set and skill set that I'll bring to the planning board to evaluate all of the developments that are on, in facing us right now. And so that's what I can provide to the planning board, is really, my experience and expertise in this area, which I'm uniquely qualified.
Thank you, Mr. Liebash. Ms. Hall, you have 90 seconds.
Great. Well, I love the long hours part, because I've been one who has actually sat through those planning board meetings in the back row, just waiting for the citizens' opportunity to speak out on projects that I think are really important. What I think is really important is planning is the details and attention to details of a project. And I think often what gets looked at is whether it's massing or density or things looked at on that level. But what really makes a good project, and I'll just use the example of the Walcott Woods project, is when citizens come forward and you hear from the voices of others. And I've been one of those voices, where you are looking to say, could this be something that is a little bit more sustainable? Could this be a little bit more, rather than doing a plastic fence, which is example in Walcott Woods, rather than doing a plastic fence, maybe we could consider a split rail cedar fence that would actually be more fitting and appropriate. And I feel like my experience in work on the historical commission, where we have worked together with the planning board, and often projects are actually referred for comment. So sitting through and looking at the details and really making sure that a project, not only from a technical, but from an aesthetic point of view, that is appropriate in size and scale and fits in with the land, most importantly, and the architectural style of what is appropriate for that site. So that's what I would bring to the table.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hall. Believe it or not, we're on to the final question before we go to closing statements. So our final question will again come from Ms. Carroll at the Milton Times and will be addressed first to Ms. Hall. Ms. Carroll, your final question, please.
So how do you anticipate weighing residents' reaction to development, which are often negative, and against landowners' abilities to develop their properties?
So that's a very good question. As far as the, because there is a push and a pull, you might say, a tug of, a little bit of a tug. How do we protect our community, and how do we allow development to occur? One of the ways we look at it is really through the lens of zoning. And what zoning and in certain areas of town, and when a resident moves to a certain area of Milton, they expect a certain level of density. If you move to East Milton Square, you're moving because you love the walkability of that area. You love the neighborhood. You love the being close to public transportation possibly. But if you move to an area where you're expecting that the zoning is 2 acre plus zoning, and you're looking and neighbors are wanting to develop, there needs to be a process in which that goes through. And so to underwrite and try to, every homeowner has their right to develop their property as they wish, but there are constraints. And that's why zoning exists, to protect not only the residents, but the neighbors who have moved into a neighborhood with the understanding, with the expectation of how it is zoned and what level of development that will occur there.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Levash, you have 90 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the energy that I am going to bring to the planning board. I'm doing this right now within my own neighborhood group. I have 80 or 90 supporters of our neighborhood who are uniquely looking at a project right now at 582 Blue Hill Ave. And so, the core of us neighbors have really, have opposed the development there that completely raises the historic home and historic garden, which we believe are so important to our fabric of Milton. And so there's a better way, there's a better way than 40B. We should absolutely, have a proactive planning approach. And unfortunately, there's just not one way to do it. We really do need to look at our zoning. We need to look at overlay districts and smart zoning. And we really need to, take a multi-pronged approach. And so for all that reason, I'm looking at a macro approach for every neighborhood so that we can fit it within our town.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Levash. That concludes the forum part of tonight's event. So we will now move on to closing statements. Tonight's closing statements were, the order was chosen at random. We will begin with Ms. Hall and end with Mr. Levash. So Ms. Hall, you have a minute for your closing statement.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you again for the invitation to speak with you tonight. For those of you who know me, I have a proven record for preserving and protecting the assets of the town. I am passionate about the opportunities to improve and revitalize our business districts in a way that is appropriate for Milton and brings your ideas to the table. I will protect our town's zoning while always looking for ways to improve it when needed. I believe that listening to our residents and creating an inclusive and transparent process is essential. And I believe with a fresh focus on thoughtful planning for affordable housing, I will move us towards our 10% goal. I believe when Milton has been successful, whether building new schools, our library, and now fire stations, it has become because we have come together and worked together as a community. Again, I am grateful for this opportunity and remain deeply committed to the town of Milton. It would be a great honor to serve as a member of the Milton Planning Board. Thank you for the consideration of your vote on April 27th, and you can go to meredithformilton.com to learn more. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hall. And Mr. Levash, your closing statement.
Yeah, Milton faces many complex challenges today with our town planning, including a tidal wave of 40B developments, an ever-increasing town budget to maintain roads, police and fire stations, quality of schools, and a need to create amenities for our residents. We must also create affordable and diverse housing options that we can welcome new residents and keep those who have called Milton home for years. I will bring my skill set, expertise, and energy to address the critical planning and housing needs facing Milton. My commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion will aid in bringing all voices into planning Milton's future while maintaining the character and attributes we all love. I'm excited to bring my passion for design and planning to this larger role for our town, and I'm ready to make an immediate difference. We must maintain the momentum that the town gained over the past 5 to 7 years towards a responsible, proactive planning approach, which allows for enhancement along with evolution for Milton. I ask for your vote for Rob on April 27th and partnership to build a bridge into Milton's bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levash. That concludes our forum for this evening. A big virtual round of applause for everyone tonight that was here. I'd like to thank the candidates, Ms. Hall and Mr. Levash, for participating in tonight's event. Thank you to Ms. Carroll, Mr. Dustin, and Mr. Wallman for their excellent questions on the panel. I'd like to remind everyone that the annual town election is scheduled for April 27th. Please check out our website for more information from the town clerk regarding early voting and the town's commitment to keeping the voting process safe with regards to COVID-19. If you have any questions regarding the election, your precinct location, or if you are registered to vote, please contact the town clerk's office at 617-898-4859. Our next and final candidate forum is scheduled for Monday, April 19th at 7 p.m. and will feature the school committee candidates. Again, thank you to everyone for participating tonight. Thank you for the viewers at home for tuning in, and I'd like to wish everyone a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you.